Hey guys, what's up? Pretty much today we're going to do a little bit of I guess you would say it, a review. I've been requested to do a couple reviews on different things, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently than other people do it out on the web. They tend to call it a review, and I think a review, I compare it to something, sort of categorize, but then they end up sort of like giving their advice on what's good and what's not in the army build. So I think that's more like an army, suggestion on the units more than an actual codex review. I feel you probably should compare it to the previous codex. What's definitely what's different. Though lots of them mention little things like that, but pretty much how the structures of your armies work. So basically, what I'm going to do in my next segments are I'm going to do what I call like the Tyranid Armies. All right, or Tyranid Armies. Guys, I tell you, I always call it Tyranid. It's like engraved in me, even though everyone pronounces it Tyranid. So bear with me. I say that every video almost. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to do an overview of the Nids as a whole, what the theory behind the Nids and playing them, okay, and then we're going to talk about the popular armies that are played and the unpopular ones for and the reasons why for and against each one, and then after that I'll start breaking down each army and pretty much give you army builds for each army, and then hopefully later on I'll be able to get to Tactica for each of these types of armies. So let's get started. Pretty much the Nids overall, they're fluff. The story of the background indicates that they're pretty much a single-minded thing. Each creature is created for a single purpose, and I really think that the creators of the Codex did a great job, because when building your armies, if you give them your models a single purpose, either close combat oriented or shooting oriented, they perform miraculously. Nid armies tend to fail when the units are not specified to do one purpose, and then you end up sort of not doing them. They're not Space Marines. They're not they can't fill dual purpose roles, because that's just not the way the Codex works. But and the fluff supports that, which I think is great, because you just you pick one route and you stick to it and you play that way during the game, and then you just have to coordinate each of the units, which makes Nids actually more tactical than a lot of people think, even though some lists are pretty much just charge as fast as you can and get to them like Swarm. But we'll get to all that. So, and then the next so that's like the thought behind that. Make sure all your units have a single purpose of what you want them to do on the field, and then fill that purpose. And the next advice I can give is, when building your list, is always think of synapse, and synapse towards the end of the game and the very first turn, or second turn actually, depending on your list. Those are the two most important things, and what your units are going to be able to do, and how much synapse do you think you really need in that. Yeah, so let's get down to the armies. To name off the armies, looking at my notes, these are pretty much all the armies that you're going to find, and pretty much it's Nidzilla, Swarm, Stealershock, Shooty, Nids, Elite, and Balanced. Those are all six, and there are a couple variations, of each list, obviously, but those, I'm classifying everything under those lists. All right, there's nothing that I won't be able to like cover or tweak in those lists that somebody else is going to create. Alright, and I guess if you really want to, come down to it, there's a flying list, but I pretty much put that under the elite list, because if you make an all flying, pretty much all flying army, you know, that flying circus is what everyone calls it. You pretty much have just a hive tyrant, and then you have all elites in your army. So that's like, some people might say that's a major list too, but I put that under the elites. Alright, so the next, so let's go down. First one is Nidzilla. What does it comprise of? A whole lot of Tyranid monstrous creatures. Pretty much my cutoff point is, I would say if you have a Nidzilla list, you have about 6 monstrous creatures or more. You can have up to 8, so I would say about 6 monstrous creatures is a Nidzilla list. Some people think, like, you plop down 3 Tyranid monstrous creatures, that you have a Nidzilla list, but that's not true. That's not what makes it a true Nidzilla list. Pretty much 6. Some people run a variant of 5 and then run more Gene Stealers, or more troops just for that added, which is, it's a little bit toned down version, but like pretty much a Nidzilla list is about 6 monstrous creatures or more. Alright, and well, the idea behind that army is, it's very big, high toughness, very potent creatures. Our Tyranid monstrous creatures are pretty much the backbone of our army. The Carnifexes and the Hive Tyrants. So they can do a lot of damage, and a lot of people think the list is broken. I think it's definitely, very powerful. I don't think it's broken because, no list is, I don't really think it's, against a balanced list, yes, it's going to probably mop the floor with a person. And that's why they tend to do very well in tourneys, because you can pretty much, take out those balanced lists. Take out a Nidzilla list, you pretty much have to have some serious firepower, very, like, a lot of lascans, and then just be able to, shoot one down a turn and then break its sort of line, or screen, and everything. But we'll get more into that, of how to use them, and how they're broken, how you can break them, and everything, in the Tactica, when I get to that. Next is the so that's what Nidzilla is all about. Just using Tyranid monstrous creatures and equipping them the leanest and meanest you can, and just, destroying the army slowly. And they can do a lot of damage. The next army is the Swarm. When building a Swarm army, you basically put as many models on the table as you can. Pretty much, I think of a Swarm army as about 120 models in a 1,500 point game, or more. You can get a lot of Nids on the table, I'll tell you. So, that's pretty much that. There's a variation. You're getting towards balanced list if you have like 100 models, in my opinion. But a true Swarm army has basically the tactic as you run as fast as you can towards the enemy, and you just swamp them with numbers. And you don't really care that maybe 40 will die in the process, because you're still going to outnumber your opponent 2-to-1 when you get into close combat. So there's not much tactic other than you just try to overwhelm your enemy with number of models and wounds and attacks. And in the swamp of just throwing dice all over the place, you're going to bear them down and whittle them down. And